Alright guys, today we are doing spiced plum jam. I'm really excited about this because I have not been able to make anything plum for a couple years, and I was gifted about 10 pounds, give or take, of plums, and so I'm using half of it in this recipe and the other half is going to be a plum sauce. So this is super easy and it comes together really quick, and then you only water bath can it for 5 minutes. But that does mean you need to make sure to set time aside to sterilize your jars because they will need to be sterilized. But what we have in my big pot is 6 cups of sugar. To that I am adding around 4 pounds of chopped plums, and they have the skins still on them. You do not have to skin them. You just need to get the pit out. So that's what I've done. It's about 2 quarts worth, which is exactly how I measured it. I just had a quart jar out and I filled it up, plopped it in the bowl, and when I had 2 quarts, I knew I was ready to go. To that, we are adding 1.5 cups of water and then 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And now we're going to stir this, turn it on a medium-high type heat. You don't want to burn anything, so be conscious of that. But we want to bring it up to a boil and let it boil until this is hit gelling point, because we are not adding any pectin to it. It would be a different recipe if we were adding pectin. This recipe comes from the National Center Food Preservation website. It has everything, guys. It is so nice. But anyway, so this will go until you reach that point. It doesn't give a time of how long. So what you could do is put a spoon in your freezer, and then when you think it's getting to gelling point, you can test it with that. Or you can just use a candy thermometer, which is what I would use, except my girls broke mine. But if you were using a thermometer, you want to get it to 220 degrees. That's your gelling point, Fahrenheit. So that is all I'm going to be doing, and I will bring you back once we are to our next step. Alright guys, so I turned off the camera too soon. You can see some of the stuff has started to melt. This is the recipe if you were just doing plum jam, but I want to do spiced plum jam. I want it to smell like autumn, fall, Christmas morning. You get the picture. I want those kind of aromatics in this. So I'm adding cinnamon, and I don't know how much I want to add. And these won't affect the time, so you don't have to worry about that. Like I said, you could leave it the way it is, but I want it to be spiced. So I am adding this much cinnamon, so maybe 1.5 teaspoons, teaspoon plus of cinnamon, and then I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg. Nutmeg is a very potent. So you do not want to add a ton or it'll taste like potpourri. So maybe this much. Right down in there. I am not going to add allspice or ginger or anything like that first because it's packed away. Because I didn't think I was going to be canning anything. So it's packed up in a box, which I could get to if I really wanted, but I don't really want to have to do that. So I'm going to see what it tastes like with just the nutmeg and cinnamon, because that's what I put in my apple butter. I don't add clove or allspice or anything really to my apple butter either, and I love it. So hopefully this will be just as delicious without those added ingredients, but we shall see. I'm going to let everything marry, and again come up to a boil, and then let it simmer until it reaches the gelling point, and make sure you're stirring so that it doesn't burn, because the last thing you want is burnt sugar flavor in your jam. It'll ruin it. So now I will bring you back. Okay, so there is the jam. And it probably went for about 30 minutes. And it passed my little spoon test. And since the jars are sterilized and they're ready to go, I'm going to can it up. And if it doesn't set up, I'm not worried about it because I'll still use it. And I can always thicken it up out of the jar, but it should be fine. So, some things, hot. So some things to remember when you are water bath canning is you want to make sure that A, you have a lid, and you have something in the bottom of your pot, just like in a pressure canner, the trays. You want something like that. I actually have the rack. And then you also want to make sure that you have enough water in your canner. Yes, sweetheart. You want to make sure you have enough water in your canner. It needs to be at least, for something as little time as this, which is 5 minutes, you need to have at least an inch of water above your jars. For longer items, like some tomato products, those you need at least 2 inches of water above your jars. So it's just something to think about. If you're not using an actual canner, make sure that your pot is big enough to hold that much water. So these are going to get, so hot, a 1/4 inch of headspace. And then I'm going to wipe the rims of the jars. And I do have my, well, I always put my lids in hot water, but especially with this being such a small amount of time, 5 minutes in the water bath canner, you just want to make sure that all your hard work is going to seal properly. So, let me get a third jar out. And then these will go right back into the canner. Alright. Sorry, I got my arm right there. So this has vinegar on it, and you just want to wipe the rim. No, baby, very hot. And you want to make sure there's no nicks or anything, which these are new jars, so they shouldn't have any nicks. I usually always have to get new jars with the jelly or half pints, just because they always get given away. Always have some, but never enough to do a whole canner load. Everyone loves to get jams and jellies. Whew, that's so hot. I need a towel. So fingertip tight. Alright, that's good. And then into the canner they go, and they'll be waiting until all of them are filled, and then we will put the lid on, bring it up to a rolling boil, and once it's at that rolling boil, that's when you start your timer for 5 minutes, and then after the 5 minutes, turn off your canner and open the lid and let them sit for an additional 5 minutes before you take them out of the canner. And then always make sure you have a towel or something down so they're not sitting directly on a cold surface. So I will bring you back here in about 10 minutes. It is bright and early in the morning, but I wanted to show you that I ended up getting exactly 8 half pints, just like the recipe said I was going to get, so that's pretty awesome. And it's loose, but once you open it up and you pop it in the fridge, it'll thicken right back up. And actually, as soon as it started cooling off in the pan, it started thickening. So I'm not worried about that at all. And you can add pectin and you can cook it longer, but it was starting to reduce down more than what I was wanting, which is good because I had to scrape the pan to get the 8 half pints. And then these are my apple butter that I did after, since my canner was already hot. So it tastes absolutely wonderful. The plums were nice and tart, and so the tart with those spices and then the sugar, A+. This stuff, I have to say, is right up here with apple butter, and I love apple butter. And I may choose this over apple butter some mornings. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I gotta get these all cleaned up because you can see my hard water, and get them labeled and in to my pantry. And I gotta get ready for some more canning today. We are doing a tomato herb jam, a spicy tomato jam, and then more diced tomatoes. So, yeah. I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.